What's up, everyone? As you already know, you can send emails using Payload's email adapters. But did you know you can design those emails using email templates too? We're going to cover how to do just that in today's video using React Email. If you want to follow along, there's a link to the repo in the description. Now, let's dive in. I won't be configuring an email adapter in this video. If you need to learn how to do that, you can check out my video on setting up Resend and SendGrid in your Payload CMS project. But I've created a simple project that already has email configured. I also added a posts collection with documents that take a slug, title, summary, image, and date field. To get started, we're going to need to install a few packages. That's going to be our React Email components, and our preview server. Components is where we're going to find all of the components that we need to design our templates. The preview server is going to allow us to see what our templates look like without sending a million emails. And then finally, the React Email package is the CLI tool we're going to need to make all of this work together. So let's install all of these now. If all goes well, these should install with no issues. And we're going to go over to our package.json file. Everything looks good in here, but we're going to add another script. So below our dev script, we're going to add email dev. And this is just going to be the email script with development following it. And we'll come back to this script in a few moments. By default, React Email looks for an emails directory at the root directory to find all the templates. So I'm going to create a new directory called emails. And you're able to change this behavior if you'd like, but I'm okay with the default behavior. I'm just going to use emails directory in the root directory here. Now, before we add any templates to this directory, let's go over what we're going to work on. The first email template we're going to design is the forgot password email that Payload sends by default. Let's spin up our development server real quick and take a look at one of the options we can configure. I can see here that there's this forgot password option. And if I do the forgot password option, I'm going to be sent an email. The email we get, though, is very basic. I'd rather this look something a little bit more similar to what my website is going to look like. So let's edit this template. The first thing we're going to do is come over to our emails directory, and we're going to create a new file and call this forgot password email.tsx. And convention does say to use kebab case here for email templates, but it doesn't really matter too much. But in this file, we're going to create a new type called forgot password email arguments. And we're going to set this equal to the fields that we need to reset a password, which will include a request, which will be a payload request, which we need to make sure is imported from Payload, and this is a type, so we'll include that as well. Then we need a token, which will be an optional string. Then we need a user, which will use our user type from Payload types. In addition to these fields that we need, we're going to include a call to action, which will be an object with a button label, which will be a string, as well as a URL, which will also be a string. Then we'll need our content, again, a string, headline, you guessed it, it's a string. And then finally, an email, which will also be a string. We also want to enable all of this to be undefined. Next up, we can start defining our template. So we have all of those there. We're going to export a default function called forgot password email, and we're going to pass in all of our args. So one thing to note here is that React Email is expecting default functions to be exported. So if you have issues accessing your templates when we get to the preview server, make sure that you're exporting default functions here. Now we can return our email design. Each component I go through, we're going to make sure imports automatically from React Email. If it doesn't, be sure to import those components as you go along. So the first one is our HTML, and we'll get that from React Email. Instead of getting it from React Email HTML, we're going to get it from components. So we'll get our HTML, and then we'll need our head, which will come from React Email components as well. This is self-closing. Then we need a preview, which will be from React email components. And the preview is what's shown in the preview field of the emails that you receive. So we can say something like forgot your password, reset it now. Then below that, we need our body component. And the body is going to contain the body of the email. So first, we're going to have a container. And in that container, we're going to have a section. And in this section, we're going to have a heading, which will take the args headline. Now, this one did an import, so let me come up here and do heading there. Then beneath our heading, we're going to have some text. So our text component will have our args content. Then below the text, we'll have another section, which will have a button component. And this button component is going to have the link of our arguments call to action URL, and will include the button label here as well. Below this section, we'll add a horizontal rule to add a little bit of separation. Then we'll include more text with an optional way to reset the password, which is going to be something like having trouble with the button, copy and paste this link into your browser. But we won't include that there. Below our text, we'll have another section. And in this section, we'll have a link from React email. This link will have the href of args CTA URL. And we'll make sure that we include this as an actual bit of text here as well. And then lastly, I will add one more section, which will have text. And in this text, we'll say you received this email because someone requested a password for, and then here we'll include our args email. If this wasn't you, you can safely ignore this email. So let's fix my typo there. Format this to look neater. And we know that this needs to be encoded, so we'll do the apostrophe here. Now, if we run pnpm email dev, we can preview what this is going to look like. So I can see that React email 5.1.1 is running, and the preview is at my localhost 3000. So let's load that up. And here I see welcome to React email, and I can see my forgot password email. So I open that up and I see nothing loads up and I'm getting a bunch of errors here. And that's because I don't have any of these arguments defined. So let's take a look at how we can make that happen. We can populate placeholder text by using something called preview props. So we're going to do our forgot password email, and we're going to use preview props, and then we'll pass in a few things here. So for our call to action, yes, we need the button label, which we'll set as reset password. Then for the URL, we're just going to use a test URL for our local host. So I can set that there. So for the content, let's say something like, let's get you back in. The headline, something like locked out. And then for the email, we can just use my test email. So now when I save, I can see the email show up here, but it still doesn't look great. But at least it has the information we need to start designing this email. The second issue we wanted to address is styles. There are at least two ways to style your email. The first is to use Inline Styles, and the second is to use Tailwind. For this first example, let's use Inline Styles. But to make sure our file doesn't get messy, let's define our styles as constants below our preview props. The first thing I'll do is create a new constant that I'll call main, and then we can pass this constant into the inline styles of our body. So I can include body style main. Now I know every component I have here is going to have some styles. So let me go through and I'm going to add all of these different constants. Now, this is not the most efficient way to do this, but this way we'll be able to go line by line and see how each style affects the email template. I can come up here then and add these to each of my sections here. So we'll have a style, this will be container, then we'll have our header, then our headline. This will be our horizontal rule. We'll have a style for button container as well as our button. For our text, we'll have the alt method with a link container and the style for link as well. In the footer, we'll have our footer and footer text. And that doesn't quite account for everything. We need our content, heading, and paragraph. So we have our content here. This should be our header, and then this will be our headline. Now for our main, we'll have a background color, and that's going to be this shade here, F9 FAFB, which will have a font family, and I'm going to copy and paste it because it is default fonts that are usually included in emails. So I will save that, and we can see all of these updates happening as we work on this together. So now for our container, we can set a margin of 40 pixels and set it to auto for the left and right. We'll have it take up the full width of what's available up to the max width of 560 pixels. I can save this and see the adjustments made. For the header, we're going to use a background color, which is going to be 065 F46. We'll have a border radius of 8 pixels, 8 pixels, 0 and 0 with padding. That's going to be pretty heavy, so 40 pixels, 48 pixels, and 36 pixels on the bottom with our text align of center, and we need to set this as a constant. And that way we just don't run into any type errors with how we're running our inline styles. So let's prettify that and see what we're looking at now. So I can see this big green background here. Then for the headline, we're going to set our color to be DDFCE2. Below that, we'll have a font size. That's medium, so we'll do 28 pixels. We'll do a font weight of 700 with a margin of 0 and letter spacing to be a little bit tighter of half a pixel. And I can save this, and we see that our headline got updated. For the content, we need a background color, which we're going to just set to white with some heavy padding of 48 pixels. We'll have a border left of 1 pixel solid, E5E, 7EB, and these are just colors that I picked earlier. So we'll do a border right as well. We can save this. So I can see here that some of the styles got mixed up. So I do know that my body style main, we have our container, which is going to be container. Our style for our section is header. Heading should be headline. So this heading should end that section there. And then we add another section that has a heading with the style of heading. And then in this, we will have our args CTA button label repeated. And so this section will have our content styles. So if I save this, we can start to see what we're looking like. Then we have our text style. This should be paragraph instead, which we've not defined yet. So let's continue down here to our paragraph and our heading. So starting with heading, we will include a color of 111827 with a medium font size of about 24 pixels with a medium font weight of about 600. Then a line height that's just a little bit bigger. Then our margin, which will be 0024 pixels. Then this also needs to be a string, so our heading should show up there. So reset password has changed. And then our paragraph, we'll do a color This will be 374151 with a font size of 16 pixels, a line height of 24 pixels, and then a margin of 0024 pixels. When I save this, we see our Let's Get You Back In has changed as well. Then for our button container, we'll do just simply a margin of about 32 pixels here. Then the button itself will be a background color, which will be 10B981. Border radius of about 6 pixels. Color of white. We'll have a display of block, a font size of 16, a font weight of 600, text decoration of none. Text align will again need to be as a constant. Our padding will be 14 by 24 pixels. Then we need to add width of 100%, max width of 250 pixels, and then a margin of 0 and auto on the left and right, so we can see what the button looks like now. Looks great there. Our horizontal rule needs some styles, so we'll have a border color. And this will be E5, E7, EB, with a margin of 32 pixels on the top and bottom. So we can see that there now. Then for the alternative method, we need a color, which will be 6B7280, font size of 14 pixels, and a margin of 00 and then 12 on the bottom. Then for our link container, we'll do a background color, which will be F9, FAFB, border radius of 6 pixels, padding of 12 pixels. Then for our word break, we're going to break all as constant, and we can see what this is coming together as. So that's looking good. Then for our link, we'll have a color, which will be 059669, font size of 13 pixels, and text decoration of none. So I can save that. I see the link changed. Then for our footer, we're going to have a background color of F9, FAFB, border radius of the opposite of the header. Our padding is going to be 32 pixels and 48 on the left and right. Then we'll have a border left of 1 pixel solid, E5, E7, EB, and we're going to do this twice more to have one on the right and then one on the left, and top is actually supposed to be on the bottom. So now I can save this, and we can see that there. And then footer text is supposed to be color 6B7280, a font size of 13 pixels with text align center as a constant. We'll have a margin of 008 pixels, and then finally a line height of 20 pixels. Now we are missing a few styles here because we're supposed to have a background all the way across. So let's take a look at what we're missing in our styles here. So it seems like the problem is actually this content section needs to have its closing right before the footer. So I'll move that there. And when I save, we can see that the email is styled nicely. You can also see what this looks like in dark mode, which is not the greatest, but it looks better than the default email we had earlier. Creating and styling the email is only the first part of the process. We need to configure Payload CMS to send it for us. We're able to do this for the forgot password email by adjusting our auth-enabled collection. We can do this over in our users.ts file. So in our users collection, we're going to import the forgot password email from our emails directory. Then we're going to import render from our React email components. We're going to change our auth option here to be an object, and then we're going to pass in the forgot password option, and we're going to generate our email HTML, which is going to be an async function with arguments. And here we're going to await our render function for our forgot password email, where we need to then pass in our arguments. We'll pass in the CTA, which is going to have a button labeled of reset your password. Then we're going to have a URL, which is going to be our payload public server URL, which we'll make sure that we have that defined here in a moment. Then outside of this, we need our content. Let's get you back in. Our headline, which will be locked out. And then finally, our email, which is going to be our args user email. So we have everything we need here. So payload public server URL is set in my environment variable. Here you can see I just have it set as localhost 3000, which is perfect. It's all I need for now. But if we were to put this in a production environment, I would obviously change this to be the correct URL. While we're here, we should also generate our email subject line, which is going to also take arguments. And we're just going to say something like reset your password for args user email. Let's end our email server and restart Payload's server. And we'll come over to our admin, go back to login. I can then click forgot password and then enter in my email address. Then I'll receive an email, which we can see looks way better than the one I originally got, which looks like this. So if we compare these, we can do the top left and the bottom left, and I can see we have our improved subject line and improved design. Great, now we have a forgot password email that looks like someone actually cared about user experience. But that's not all we can do with React Email and Payload CMS. What if we had a posts collection that we publish documents from frequently? And what if we wanted to email a few people each time we published a new post? That's something you can easily achieve with Payload CMS's hooks. While you could use something like Resend's broadcast API to send to lists of contacts, we're going to stick with one-to-one transactional emails for simplicity. Let's start with defining a new template in our emails. So we're going to include a new file, which is going to be called new post alert.tsx. And we're going to style this one as we go using Tailwind, which is our other option. So I'm going to run our email development server. And then over here, we're going to change this to be localhost 3001. And now we can start working on our new email. So we're going to import React from React. Then I'm going to import all of the components I used earlier. So we're going to have our body, our button, our container, our heading, our head, our HTML, an image, then our link, preview, section, text, and then finally, Tailwind. Tailwind's what we're going to be using to style, so we need that component as well. Now we can create our new type, which is going to be a type of new post alert args, where we're going to have our summary, which is going to be a typed editor state from Payload CMS rich text lexical. I know this because in our post, we have a rich text field. This can also be null. Then we need a title, which will be a string or null. Then we need a slug, which is required. So that will be just a string. Our date, which can be a date string, a regular string, or a null value, and an optional image, which will be from our media type or a null value. We then want to set some preview props, but we don't have our new post alert email defined yet, but that's okay. I know what I'm going to name it. So I'm going to use my title, which is going to be Getting Started with React Email. We'll have a slug, which is going to be Getting Started with React Email with a date, which we'll just use today's date, no biggie. We'll use an image that has a URL, which is going to be HTTPS. We're going to use our pick some photos, and we'll just do a 640 by 360 image with the alternative description of tutorial preview. We'll need a width of 640 and a height of 360. We'll include a comma up there. And then I'm just going to paste in some sample lexical text, which I got from the API screen in a test project. So I will include that here, and we'll see what that says here in a moment. Then we will cast this as unknown, and then as new post alert args. Now we can start working on our email. So we're going to export a default function called new post alert and accept the new post alert args, and we can see that all of my type errors have gone away because I have defined the default function. We should now also see new post alert here as my email template is now provided. So we'll see this go as we create the email. Instead of args here, I'm going to use summary, image, title, slug, and date just to make my life easier instead of trying to access these in the args themselves, since these are the only fields that I know I need. We'll return an HTML component with a head component, which again is self-closing. We'll check if a summary exists, and if it does, we're going to include a preview, and here we're going to use the convert lexical to plain text. We know that the preview field in an email takes only plain text, so I want to make sure that I provide that for them. So we'll include data, which is going to be our summary rich text field, and that's it for our preview. Now we can start with the styles. So we're going to use Tailwind here, and we're going to start with the body. So the class name for the body is going to be background, and then we'll have F6, F9, FC, and then font sans. So we can save this, and nothing's really going to change here. But one thing to note is that my project does not have Tailwind installed in it, but it doesn't need to in order for this to work. So now we can add a container, and this container will have the class name of mxauto, my10, max width extra large, background white, rounded, large, shadow, medium, overflow, hidden. And I'm going to save this each time so we can see the styles as they appear. Then we'll have our section, and in this section we'll have a class name, which will be BG Emerald 900, padding left and right, padding top and bottom of 12, padding left and right of 10, text center. Then we'll have our heading, so we can start to see the styles show up, but for the heading, we have a class name of text emerald 100, a text size of 3XL. We'll make it bold with a tight leading with no margin except for on the bottom where we'll have margin of 3. Now we'll include our title, and we can see what this looks like. Perfect. So below this, we have a new heading that's going to actually be as an H2. Then we'll pass in our class names, text emerald 200, text large, font normal, margin of 0. We'll make it all uppercase and have wide tracking. And here it will say now available. And when I save this, I can see now available show up. Underneath our section, we'll need an image if it exists. So we'll check if that image exists. And if it does, we'll have a new section with a class name of padding left and right of 10, top and bottom of 5. Then we're going to have this image be a link where we'll have an href that I will just copy and paste because it's going to be a little bit long. But this is just going to take our public server URL. If that doesn't exist, it'll use localhost. And then we know that this is going to be our posts collection, and it's going to take the slug. So we've got our link defined here with no styles. Now we can pass in our image, which is going to take our source, which is image URL, and we'll do a non-null assertion there. We'll do our image alt, and if that doesn't exist, we'll include an empty string. For our width, we'll take our image width, or 640, and our height, image height, or 360. And then the class name here is going to be width of full, height of auto, block, rounded corners large with medium shadow. I can save this, and we now see an image show up. Below the image section, we'll create a new section, which is going to have our class names of padding left and right of 10 and top and bottom of 5. Then in here, we'll have another section, which will be a class name of text center, margin bottom of 8. And in here, we'll have our button. So our button is going to have the same href that we have up here. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it. And then underneath our href, we'll have some class names, which will be BG Emerald, 600, rounded, medium, text Emerald, 50, text base, font, semi-bold, no underline, text center inline block, padding top and bottom of 3.5, padding left and right of 8, margin bottom of 4, and normal leading. And the button will read, simply read now. I can save this. We see the button there now. Then below our button section, we'll need a heading. The heading will be as an H3. We'll have the class names of text gray 900, text extra large, font will be semi-bold with no margin except on the bottom of 1 rem, and we'll have snug leading. We'll say here's a sneak peek. Then below our heading, we'll check if there's a date, and if there is a date, we'll include the class name of text gray 500, text small, no margin except on the bottom of a margin of 5, and then we'll have this be italic. Then we will create a new date with the date field passed in, converted to locale date string with the English US locale. We'll have a year of numeric, we'll have a long month and a numeric day as well. And now it's time to render our summary if it exists. So again, we'll check summary. And if that exists, we're going to pass in our rich text field. So I need to import this from rich text lexical, and I'll pass in our summary here and then close off our rich text. So when I save this, we'll see our rich text here show up, and we can see that this email is using the rich text options that we set in the post. Now, last thing we need to do is set up a footer. So we've got a section, which will be a class name, which will have a background gray of 50, padding top and bottom of 8, padding left and right of 10, text center border top, border gray 200. Then we'll include text, which will have a class name of text gray 500, text small, normal leading, no margin except on the bottom of half a rem. And we'll just tell people that you're receiving this email because you signed up for updates. So I can save this, and we can see that our email is complete. Very well designed and looks way better than any plain text email that we would get from Payload CMS. So now we need to trigger this email. To do this, we need to go to our posts config. And once we're here, we're going to add the hooks option after our field. So we'll add hooks. Then I'm going to add an afterChange hook, which will take an array of hooks. And we're going to use an async hook here, where we're going to get the request, which was just going to be payload. Then we need our operation and our document. And then we'll check if the operation is create, because I don't want to send an email each time that we update this document. I only want to send an email after I create a new post. So now I'm going to destructure my document image, but I need to make sure that I cast that as media. So I will take out our URL and then all the rest. Then we need our HTML, which we'll have as await render new post alert. So I need to make sure that this imports correctly, and it does. And then in the new post alert, I can pass in the whole doc. And then for the image, I can pass in the URL that I want, and then all the rest. So for the URL, I'm going to use this URL here. And what this is doing is it's again using my localhost 3000, but I know that this URL as it's stored right now is only the API path, so I need to add that to my localhost. Now here I need to import render, so I'm going to do that now, make sure that that imported correctly, and it did. And now below my HTML, I can await payload send email. So now I can set this to an array of emails, but I'm just going to include myself. So I'll do that there. And then my subject, which is just going to be new post, is now available. But to make sure that I'm getting more information than that, I'll include the doc title. So I can say new post doc title is now available. And then we just pass in our HTML. Now that I'm logged in, I can go to my posts, create a new one, React email for beginners. This is rich text that is then converted to both plain text and JSX on the front and even in my emails. So now I can use my bold, I can use my underline, I can even strike through something. Then I can create a new image, which will just be from pick some photos, which will again be a 640 by 360 image. We'll add a file, email test, image, flowers. We can hit save, select a date, and then save this. So now when I save this, I can see that an email comes through that says new post React email for beginners, which is the title of the post that I created. I can click into this image and the read now button and see that the links work, as well as the rich text field here as well. And that's it. It's very simple to get up and running with email templates using React Email in Payload CMS. The options are endless with this pairing. You could create a newsletter using Resend's broadcast API, style a verification email flow for logging into Payload CMS, or create email templates that send to your editing team whenever someone edits a specific collection or document. How will you use this powerful combination in your projects? I hope you found this video helpful. If you want more helpful information like this, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. My newsletter is also a great resource to pick up more helpful tips and tricks like this one. There's a link to subscribe to my newsletter, as well as a way to support me on Patreon in the description. If you have questions or suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. Leave those in the comments section of this video. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. If you want to learn how to configure email adapters, the video on the left is for you. Learn more about the Payload CMS rich text component in the video on the right.